Attorney Martin George. He's also a former member of the Police Service Commission. Mr. George, good morning, and thank you very much for being with us.
Yeah, hi. Good morning to you, Rishi, and good morning to your viewers on Multicultural TV, and good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Mr. George, so of course the controversy and public conversation continues about Gary Griffith, the Prime Minister, and the Police Service Commission. First of all, what do you make of all that is being said? First of all, by the Prime Minister, I saw, did you see the Freedom of Information Act request that would have been sent in and the letter that would have come out into the public domain?
Well, I saw some excerpts from a letter from the Prime Minister where I think he had written to the Police Service Commission complaining about the former commissioner. I did see some excerpts.
Do you think that the Prime Minister's writing to the PSC in the first place about Gary Griffith is a matter for concern?
Not by itself. No, there's nothing wrong with the Prime Minister writing and raising his concerns with the PSC, because I could tell you, having sat there for 9 years continuously, we get letters from all kinds of people all the time, information, phone calls from all kinds of persons who make reports on police officers, on commissioners, deputy commissioners. So the fact of the matter is, sending the information, there's nothing wrong with it. Where it would be wrong is if the commission, without doing its own independent investigation and forming its own independent view, were to be swayed or influenced by a letter coming from the Prime Minister. In other words, you don't ignore it to say, well, you just throw it in the rubbish. But the fact of the matter is, you don't also let it immediately influence your decisions or actions. So if it is that concerns have been raised, you can then decide, let's investigate, let's find out for ourselves and form our own independent determination and decision. So not because a Prime Minister may write to the Police Service Commission and say, well, look, I don't like this commissioner and this commissioner is bad because of ABC, means that you, the Police Service Commission, must accept that carte blanche. That's not how you are supposed to function as an independent institution.
It would seem that because the Prime Minister wrote to the Police Service Commission, we are in a position now where we, members of the public, they are questioning the independence of our institution, that is the Police Service Commission, and questioning its ability to fairly select a commissioner of police, because we still have so many questions about the merit list.
Well, the thing is, the new commission, I wouldn't want to saddle them necessarily with the baggage of the previous commission. I would like to be fair to them and give them a fair opportunity to prove or disprove themselves, as the case may be. But the fact of the matter is, I think the previous commission definitely, they were clearly very, very compromised in terms of the things that were revealed in the public space. So I don't think there was any credibility that could be attached to their actions, particularly even in relation to the merit list.
Yeah. Do you think then there is a deliberate attempt to sabotage the character of Gary Griffith for, I want to use the term loosely, political mileage or to discredit him in some way?
Well, I can't comment on that. I don't have information to say yay or nay.
Yeah. So let's then go into the Stanley John report, because the opposition leader raised the important question of how that report got leaked. Care to talk us through your thoughts on what has been published from the report?
Well, if what we have seen in the newspaper represents the accurate contents of the Stanley John report, it does seem to raise rather troubling issues. Of course, one would hope that the report does more than just report, and it actually has the facts, the figures, the vouchers, the documents to verify and certify the conclusions or the assertions that are made in the report. And if that's the case, then of course, these are matters that I think would have to be investigated in terms of how it came into the public space and, those other matters. I have no knowledge of such, and I cannot even begin to comment on that. Suffice it to say that if it is that the commission is now seized of the report, I think they owe a duty to the public to come out and say something in terms of how they intend to treat with it. And maybe, even as the opposition leader has said, maybe they might need to clear the air in terms of if they are aware as to how or why it came public, before they themselves pronounced on it. So I think the issue of restoring the image and the public trust and confidence in the institution of the Police Service Commission is paramount. And I think there may be need for the present commission to come out and clear the air on some of these issues.
Yeah. How much weight does such a report carry? The Stanley John report. Do you think it carries much weight? What do you think can be done with the report? How much of an impact is this going to have in the person of Gary Griffith if he decides to resubmit his name to be considered for police commissioner?
Well, as I say, I don't know if the report has all the supporting documents and, the elements of evidence to back it up. So I can't comment on the weight of the report in that regard. I mean, the conclusions drawn and the statements made appear on the face of it, scandalous and scurrilous enough. However, as we all know in law, it's not a question of what actually happened. It's a question of what you can prove. So the proof of this would really, the proof of the pudding in this case would really be in the evidential backing that it has. So that I don't know what evidence is backing it. But I mean, if there is sufficient evidence backing it, then of course it does create an issue that I don't think the present Police Service Commission could ignore.
Do you think then Mr. Stanley John should come out and speak with the public on his report and findings and provide the evidence in a public space?
I don't think that would be appropriate at all. That would be highly inappropriate. I think he already erred respectfully, and I say this with the greatest of deference and respect, when he issued that letter to Mr. Griffith, and the wording of that letter, I think, was very unhappy use of language. But, I don't think he should exacerbate the situation by coming out now and speaking on it at all.
Yeah. Well, people are saying, well, this what is happening now may be seen as the end of Gary Griffith as Commissioner of Police. Do you think that is the case?
Well, the thing is, as I say, it's a question of what evidence you actually have, because the point is, it's easy for members of the public and, persons who are uninformed to jump to conclusions. But, we all know in law that, an allegation is nothing more than that. It's just an allegation. Yeah. The question really would be, what is the evidential trail that backs that allegation and whether that evidence is justiciable and provable in a court of law?
Yeah. So we look at this entire situation, we see the public commentary, a lot from the former commissioner himself responding to all of the newspaper articles. We're not hearing much from the Prime Minister or the Police Service Commissioner at all. How much of an impact are these public conversations, or if we can call it that, it seems to be going one way from time to time, having on the integrity and the public confidence on what is supposed to be an independent state institution, and of course the police service, which is supposed to be independent as well?
Well, it appears for whatever reason, the former commissioner is waging his battle in the public space, I think on social media and on Facebook and, all other different platforms. And that seems to work for him. I certainly don't think that the Police Service Commission should descend to that level or stoop to that level. I think they ought to remain above the fray at all times. So therefore, it's quite fine for the former commissioner, and I mean, all members of the public can voice their views and expressions. I am not sure that any of that ought to impact or impinge whatsoever on the work that the Police Service Commission has to do and the sober, judicious decisions that they need to take in relation to this matter if they are to maintain the integrity and the public confidence and the constitutional remit of that institution called the Police Service Commission.
So I'm glad we're going there now to the work that the commission has to do. Because the commission's main job, and you can correct me, you were there, is to put forward a merit list for the position of Commissioner of Police. That's probably its major task, yes?
No, the major task is to have oversight, regulatory oversight over the offices of Commissioner of Police and Deputy Commissioner of Police. Part of it also involves, where necessary, having to do the selection process for Commissioner of Police or Deputy Commissioner of Police.
Now, do you think there are still questions to be answered as to what happened to the 2021 merit list? That seems to have gone cold.
Well, they actually have indicated that they have received legal advice and that they have taken a decision to not go with that previous merit list. I saw the leader of the opposition make a call for that legal advice to be made public. And, there may be some merit in that call so that at least there could be some clarity to show, well, this is what we based our decision on. Of course, I think even under the Freedom of Information request, it may be possible to make a request for that. Of course, there may be the question of, attorney-client privilege and whether it's covered by privilege. And if it's a privileged document, then it may be protected from disclosure. But, at least maybe some more transparency can be given on the issue so that the public doesn't feel that it's a cloak and dagger operation or a game of smoke and mirrors. So that sometimes, even though you may have a legal right to withhold your advice, the legal advice that you got, sometimes it may help in terms of building back and bridging that gap between yourself and the public out there. If you were to disclose that legal advice and say, hey, listen, folks, this is what we acted on. Have a look at it and you can understand our decision was reasonable.
Do you think that the Police Service Commission should then be accountable to Parliament so that it, at least in some way, creates a greater level of transparency?
You see, once you put it accountable to Parliament, then, I think you have just totally removed all, shred of, independence. There's no question of independence anymore. Once you have politicians having oversight over an independent body, then you may as well forget the thought of it being an independent body. What we may look at, if I'll just finish, Rishi, what we may look at is probably the model from Jamaica, where they have set up what they call INDICOM, which is the Independent Service Commissions in relation to all their facets of the armed forces, which covers their army, their coast guard, their fire service, their police service, and that body is a permanent body. You see, we, on the other hand, have this scenario where you have every 3 years, you have this rotation of, commissioners. Fortunately, I was reappointed, on 3 consecutive terms. But the fact of the matter is, if you just have persons coming in and out, it creates an instability. And then you have personalities getting into the mix where, one chairman may decide, well, look, I am doing things this way, going right. Next chairman may decide I'm going left. And, it creates a certain level of uncertainty and instability. But if you have like a permanently established commission where maybe commissioners serve for 7 years or, on rotation, that kind of thing, then I think that lends itself to something that not only spans political generations, in the sense that if the government changes in 5 years, then you still have that commission functioning. So therefore, there's no question of somebody saying you're a political appointee or anything of the sort. That, I think, gives a more robust independence to the institution.
Yeah, because I'm thinking we need to find a way to have these institutions account, because look at what happened with the last board. So many questions would have been asked of the last chairman and the last board, and we never got any answers. So we need to find a way to get answers.
Yes, and I understand that from that perspective. So, but then again, that may now be something constitutional, that you may have to write something into the Constitution in that sense to try to, hold them to account in terms of, their operations. Now, I will say that they do have to appear at least once every year before the committees of Parliament, whereby these subcommittees do ask questions in terms of the operations and things like that. However, that may not be enough, particularly in a circumstance where something is happening live and at the moment.
Yeah. So hopefully this is something that is addressed, because I don't think anybody wants to see that next year or later on this year we end up in another position where it's controversy again over the appointment of a police commissioner, and the police service commission is all over the place again. Nobody wants that at all.
Well, exactly. But Rishi, I am just hoping and keeping fingers crossed that at least before the end of 2022, at least we'll have a permanently appointed commissioner and permanently appointed deputy commissioners, because I think even that process going forward is going to be fraught with litigation along the way, because you may have those who were on this previous merit list who may feel slighted, who may feel, well, look, my chances were good there. Why do I have to go over this process? So you may see people filing legal actions. In fact, even the former commissioner himself might file legal action, challenging this decision to abandon the previous merit list. So I think the road ahead is littered with litigation and contention and challenges. And I don't think we've seen the end of this debacle yet.
And you know what really gets me the most is that when all of these errors are made, it's my money, my tax-paying dollars is what is being used to pay for these matters, and when it goes to court and that kind of thing. And I think, to me, that is what hurts the most.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, there is never any accountability by any office holder in relation to either errors or mistakes that were made, in that regard. And of course, we have to also balance it, Rishi, because, I mean, if you remember the cases of Ken Julian and Bamboo Networks, all right, and the case of Malcolm Jones and Petrotrin, right? One of the things that came out of those two cases was that, it was said that these things will serve as a disincentive to prevent good people from coming forward to serve. Because if it is that, in the course of carrying out your duty as a director on a state board or a constitutionally appointed board, such as the Police Service Commission, if it is that you feel that, look, there's the risk of you now being sued afterwards for the way you performed your duty, then many persons will just say, look, I don't want to go. But on the other hand, you can't have an institution functioning as a runaway horse and, untrammeled and uncontrolled and, just, doing whatever it wants. So, it's a dicey scenario where you want to exert some level of control, but still you want to ensure that the institution can function with a sufficient level of independence that, it can therefore be able to make its own decisions. And, if we look, for instance, to the judiciary, maybe we might find the answers there, because in the judiciary, your judges are robustly independent because they have tenure. So in other words, they cannot be easily removed. So in that sense, they do have that level of robust independence. However, they are still subject to oversight from the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. So maybe that's a way we can look at structuring the Police Service Commission going forward. So that way you achieve the twin objectives, because it's a fine line you're always walking in that regard. You want to have accountability, but you don't want to have so much control that the institution loses its independence.
So there are models that we can look at to fix this situation. How long they take, that is another
I
question,
would
Mr.
think
George.
so. And whether there's the political will to do so,
Exactly.
and whether we can get both sides of the aisle to come together, even for a simple thing as that, to agree on it, that is always the challenge in Trinidad and Tobago.
Exactly, because first of all, the problem is going to start with somebody's not going to support whoever is proposed to be the person there at the police service. So that in itself, there will be little to no political will to get that done. Mr. George, I want to move away from this conversation a little bit, because I'm hearing that Tobago is planning its own carnival in October.
Well, I saw something yesterday. I am yet to see an official announcement from the THA or the Chief Secretary. But if it is true, I welcome and embrace that news. It's something I have campaigned for years. I have said repeatedly, Tobago should not be trying to compete with Trinidad for carnival at the same time that Trinidad has carnival. Tobago should offer itself during that period as the alternative. So all school groups, church groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Guides, Brownies, all these groups that, want nature seekers, whatever, let them use Tobago as the escape, the getaway. So you have no carnival activities whatsoever during that time in Tobago, right? All Tobagonians who want to have carnival activities, let them go down to Trinidad, give them a free ride on the ferry if necessary, free tickets. I'm telling you, because you see, the fact of the matter is you have lots of Tobagonians who really enjoy the carnival festivities. So therefore, you want to balance it so that you don't make them feel you're depriving them. Give them a free ride on the ferry. Look, you could go down and enjoy yourself and come back up. But the fact of the matter is you market Tobago at that time as the escape. You don't know how many families in Trinidad would love the idea of, look, you go to Tobago and it's just peaceful, it's quiet, they could enjoy themselves. They could have their own little limes and their own little parties even, whatever. But at the end of the day, you don't have the cacophony of sound and noise and dust and heat and associated with the carnival. And then now you can focus on making the Tobago Carnival in October a grand event. Think of the benefits, Rishi. Persons who may not have been able to afford it or make it in time to play mass in February, March in Trinidad, they could then plan and say, hey, listen, I'm going to Tobago for October to play my mass. All the big bands, Hearts, Tribe, Legends, all of them, they now can bring across their sections to Tobago for October, and you have a massive carnival event that is now a draw on the calendar, right? Even persons from North America who may not have been able to make it for February, March can plan and say, okay, look, instead I'm going to come to Tobago for the Tobago Carnival in October. It's a brilliant idea. It's something I have been shouting from the rooftops for years, and I am so pleased if it is that it is really true. Then you will see the benefits of this will be amazing for both Trinidad and Tobago.
I tried reaching out to Tasia Burris, the Secretary for Tourism, yesterday evening. However, I was unable to get on to her. So I will try to get that confirmation as well today, because, it's a conversation, as you said, that has been going on for quite some time. Do you think that you're going to have pods up in Pigeon Point? Did you see the images of the pods that they're planning at Queen's Park Savannah?
I saw them. And, of course, it's a good idea in terms of trying to keep persons separated and, to keep, like maybe, I guess, a family together or a group together. Of course, knowing the nature of us as Trinbagonians, I think policing it and managing it would really be the test. So I wait to see how the NCC plans to, meet that challenge.
Yeah. So we wait to see how that goes, Mr. George. Do you think the image of Tobago is improving over the last couple of months?
Well, I would certainly think that there is a buoyancy, there is a renewed spirit, there is an invigoration, and there is the resurgence of hope. And I'll tell you something, Rishi. You see, hope is something that it is what gives people that inspiration. If you remember Barack Obama's autobiography, The Audacity of Hope, and that is what he thrived on. If you look at his 2008 campaign, he was able to give America hope, make them believe again. And I think you are seeing that in Tobago, and I think it's a good thing. It just needs to be managed and harnessed carefully. And I think we can really see some fantastic results in the future if that is handled in a way to the benefit of Tobagonians and Trinidad and Tobago as a whole.
So we look forward to it, Mr. George. As soon as we get confirmation of a carnival in Tobago, I know we'll be getting a statement from you expressing your happiness and pleasure on it. So I look forward to chatting with you again. Thank you so very much for joining us this morning.
It's always a pleasure, Richie. Have a great morning. Thank you.